So I went out and I found another article that talked about what employers, managers, what are the 3 or 4 things that you can do as a manager if you are worried about this in your workforce. And of course, not everybody is, because there are some great teams out there that are very engaged, and the team is just functioning very well. I've been part of a couple of those, and it's an amazing experience. But you also have managers out there who are aware that, oh wow, part of my workforce is disengaged. So if you had to give 1 or 2 tips for managers, what would you tell managers? And then my second question is, especially for Brian, I want to know, you've kind of given this, but if you had to give 1 or 2 tips for quiet quitters who are in that situation, what would you tell them?
Okay,
So
you
for the
can't give 2
managers,
questions. Go ahead.
oh, why not? Okay. Well, I think for the managers, spending the human connection time with your employees is important. So in my prior corporation, you get one-on-one, which is 30 minutes once a month. I think we need more human touches in a virtual world where we can bridge that human connection, whether it's with the manager. I think once a week, 15 to 30-minute pulse check is great. However, time is sacred nowadays. But that human touch with fellow employees as well. But I think the main thing the managers can do is make that time, right? So you have your competing priorities and everything has to be done now. Well, everything cannot be done now. You got to prioritize based on your resources that are available. Here are the things we're going to work on. And you can't just say, oh, just one more thing. It's within your portfolio. You're not, that busy. You can do it. Well, how can you decide whether employee is busy or not? They may be very busy. You just not gauging that correctly. So, and having that human touch is really important so you can know how well are your employees thriving in your environment. So to me, I'd say the top 2 things that a manager can do is make time, prioritize better to make that time, and to properly prioritize employees' time. Get rid of the fire drills. Make sure that you have a proactive environment based on those priorities. And you can achieve that by creating that environment with the leadership down, right? So we have these environments that are disconnected. You have your leadership environment, and then you have your bottom line management environment. And oftentimes those 2 compete. Leadership says management has to. Well, management needs to speak up that management can't because we stretch thin. Give us more resources, right? That's that ever tipping scale of what can be done and what should be done. And for quiet quitters, what I would really say is get down to your why. We only have one life. We live one life, and it's our responsibility to find joy in every moment, to find our voices, to find our creative energy, to get out of the fear box and do something meaningful with your life. And if you're struggling in your work to find that, get down to the basics. What matters the most to you? Find that inspiration, find that purpose, and start pursuing it. Nobody is having this mindset any longer. I mean, we have, and it's generational. So I think we've evolving over. My mom says I have to be a doctor or she won't love me, right? So I think we're kind of over that. Of course, some cultures will argue, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're not successful. But we're not there. You can be an artist and you can be successful if that's your passion. There is just so many things that you can do to bring value to your life and to the life of others, especially to your families, because they feel it too. Brian?
Awesome.
What she said.
What she said.
Michelle, what about you?
Wait.
Brian wants the torch. Go for it.
Kids these days. It's not just about the one-on-one time with the managers and making sure that fire drills don't happen, because you can't always make sure the fire drills don't happen. Especially in the industry, it depends on the industry that you're in. I mean, there's just times where you have to do a fire drill. But what you can do is try to minimize the amount of fire drills and start to get a message out there saying, we're not appreciative of fire drills, but when you have clients, it's hard to tell them no, especially when they're demanding it and they're really upset. So there's just times where the fire drill is going to happen. Training is one thing, making sure that you find the people who are willing to train the other people. Managers tend to think that, well, learning how to train people is just something that everybody has to learn. And that's not a bad philosophy, but there are some people that are really good at training and really good at teaching the people what they need to learn. And there are people that are just really, really bad at it. So it's recognizing what your talent is in your employees, what their talents are, who does what really well, and finding if they even want to teach. I mean, if you don't want to train somebody, you're not going to do a good job training somebody. So you need to get to know your people enough to know what aspects they're really good at and what they excel in. And yes, I realize that you can't always get to do the things that you always excel in because other people need to learn it as well, or other people need the opportunity to do it as well. But it's just being aware of who you have under you and how to utilize them appropriately. So I think I've already talked about quiet quitting enough but on the other side of it, let me say this. I say I was quiet quitting for 20 years, but that was because I couldn't see myself out of the job that I was in. Burnout will take away any thought processes because you don't really have any more capacity to deal outside of the stress that you're really dealing with. So even though I wanted out of engineering, I couldn't see my way out of engineering. So then I was stuck in where I was because if I can't see my way out, then I might as well be making the money that I'm making. And those are two downward situations. So the first thing I would say is to start looking at your wants and your desires and figuring out whether they match your talents, what you're really good at, and what your desire is on following that purpose. So then you can start working towards that, but that's going to take some time, especially if you're in really heavy burnout. And two, you just got to start making sure you take some time to rest. It's not until you really start resting that you can really start to think for yourself, because your body has a chance to settle down, relax, and give you the opportunity to start utilizing your imagination on what you need to do.